Nostalgia is like a quiet companion that stays with us from the moment we encounter wonder. The things that captivate us in childhood often feel like little treasures, intensely beautiful, strange, or thrilling experiences that linger in our heart long after they happen. A favourite story, a beloved place, or even a recurring scent. All these are more than just fragments of memory. They become soft imprints that shape our inner worlds, drawing us back to a time when the sense of possibility felt limitless. Each glimpse backwards offers comfort, not just because it's familiar, but because it reminds us of the raw, unfiltered joy we felt before life's complexities crept in. If we are lucky, we become adults who chase those echoes, finding meaning in things that might otherwise seem simple or trivial. As we grow, the wonder of our childhood transforms, evolving into the dreams we pursue or the values that we hold dear. The simple awe of a starry night might lead to a love for science, art, or exploration. A childhood hero might spark a lifelong admiration for resilience, kindness, or creativity. Nostalgia, then, is more than just sentiment. It's a quiet force that pulls us towards who we once were and who we wish to be. It reminds us that those early moments of magic still matter, that they are woven into our choices, our dreams, and the person that we put out into the world. It's as if, in adulthood, we continue to seek out these childhood treasures, breathing life into them, as if they hold the key to transport us to a place where the world makes far more sense. Welcome to If These Trees Could Talk. The team at If These Trees Could Talk wish to acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional lands of the Wanneroo Nation. We would like to recognise that we share our stories from the stolen lands of our nation's first storytellers. Our conversations, in many ways, follow their traditions of storytelling and sharing knowledge and experience. We wish to pay our respect to the Wanneroo elders and ancestors, as well as extend that respect to all First Nations people, including our listeners, and acknowledge and honour their continued connections to the land and waters that have been the inspiration for the stories that we share.
Today, we'd like to extend our acknowledgement to all of the lands where you are listening from, in particular the Wadawurrung land on which today's story takes place.
We haven't seen each other for a while. We're a bit unhinged. This was high on my list. I've said it heaps of times.
And it came from Aireys Inlet.
Aireys Inlet.
That's fascinating.
I know. Amazing. Have you ever felt like this?
I want everyone to know that Shannon actually writes her introductions herself. She does not use AI.
Can you imagine if that's what the whole podcast sounded like, though?
When you say it, I'm often not really completely in the moment because I'm checking that sounds all right and, our mics are up the right volume. And then I go back when I'm editing it and I listen to it and go, wow. Very cool. I'm intrigued and excited about today's episode based on that. And again, not knowing anything about where we're headed.
Well, there is no trigger warning today.
Yay.
This is just, I thought, off the back of having a double episode about Anne Hamilton Byrne and the cult, that we might need a bit of a palate cleanser where we just have something a bit lighter and a bit more fun and maybe not so traumatic to our internal nervous system. So
I love this for me.
It has been a journey to pick what I was going to do because today is our first day back in the studio for quite a few weeks because I've been away having a little trip. That little trip fit in a whole pile of stuff. So I have a myriad of stories that I now want to tell, but choosing what I was going to do first has been a little bit difficult. There were a few key points along the way where I was like, I have to show Megan that this is happening. And apart from our morning messages, because I was doing the Talk to Me Bro walk, so I was sending Megan a picture of where I was walking each morning, and there were some pretty magic spots.
It was a little bit mean.
She did reply with lots of sarcastic remarks.
Here's my morning walk. It's the same as yesterday's.
And we did really good for the majority of October.
It was really great.
The wheels fell off once I got home.
Yeah. Back to reality.
Yeah, and I was in a new place like almost every day. So I had heaps of places that I wanted to go and explore, and we were camping in incredible spots. So to wake up and go, which way and what am I going to experience was so cool. Like one morning in the Grampians, I just got up and started walking, and we were like literally 150 metres from our camp, and just walking along the edge of this creek, and all of these deer walked out, like sambar deer with their big antlers. And Charlie's like, oh dear, Mum, look at that.
Good one. He's going to make a great dad.
I think he might have got that from his dad. That was one thing. And then the other thing that I was consistent in including Megan in was the chocolate factory at Phillip Island. Because
thanks for that.
We thought we were just going to a chocolate shop, and then they were like, oh, there's tickets for tours. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we're going to go and do that. And it was like going into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. There was a absence of small orange creatures, but there was so many cool things and all of these art installations made by chocolate, and there was a whole train set, and I'm like, Megan, I'm buying this for Tom.
Where is it, by the way? Where is our train set?
Sorry, I didn't get you a train set, but I did get you these.
Oh, it's a chocolate penguin from Phillip Island. I love it so much. You're the sweetest. I love that you waited to give it to me till we were recording as well.
Yeah, well,
you're the sweetest.
I just thought that might up your chocolate intake for the afternoon.
I literally just said as they open some chocolate for us, I've got a serious chocolate problem. So I appreciate you helping me out here. Thank you.
Yeah, the chocolate is amazing. So we got to like make our own and watch people make it. It was seriously cool. Like I just thought, oh, we're just going to go in here and buy some overpriced chocolate. It was worth every cent. And what it costs you to do the tour, you literally eat that much chocolate while you're on the tour. Like even the ticket was made out of chocolate. It was so cool.
Wow.
There was a machine, and I don't know how they do it, and we tried to work out how many chocolates they would have to have in the machine to make it work. So there's 4 flavours that you can choose. Like, so it's very Willy Wonka. There's lots of lights and little things that go up and down and in and out. But you choose your flavour and then you press buttons and you have to pull handles, and it sort of goes through and it shows you each phase. It's just animated. You're not actually seeing the chocolate get made. But they would have to have all the combinations of the flavours actually stored inside that machine. So there was strawberry, cola, wasabi and Vegemite. Ugh. And Charlie chose all 4. It was foul. It was so bad. And I did say to him, maybe we should have got Auntie Megan one of those. So anyway, you can have your chocolate penguin. And I just thought, given my penguin experience, that that kind of just had a funny little...
Oh, right. The penguin experience. Is that today's episode?
It's not, and it won't be in an episode because I don't think we should talk about me causing violence.
Oh, yeah, that would need a trigger warning.
It would need a trigger warning.
I'm opening the chocolate so I can take a selfie because I think we need this on the show notes.
Yeah,
because people will be very intrigued. Okay, that smile's very big.
You really like chocolate.
I'm not going to eat it yet.
Okay. Well,
but I'm going to hide that from my children.
I did think that you would probably hide that from your children. Yes.
Will.
This has got nothing to do with penguins or chocolate, but I just thought I would save that for today to give it to you.
Love that.
Today I've decided for our first day back in the studio that I am going to take you to Aireys Inlet. Aireys Inlet is a small coastal town located in Victoria on the Great Ocean Road, 122 kilometres southwest of Melbourne. Aireys Inlet is located between Anglesey and Lorne, which anybody who has heard about the Great Ocean Road would know both of those towns. It's a charming coastal town and offers a delightful mix of natural beauty, history, and outdoor adventure. At its heart is the historic Split Point Lighthouse. And I did call Megan when I got to Split Point Lighthouse. I didn't think that I was going to be allowed to go in, and we just turned up and it was open. This was high on my list, and you will soon see why. Split Point Lighthouse has breathtaking views over Eagle Rock Marine Sanctuary. The town's beaches are ideal for surfers and families, with Fairhaven Beach as a popular spot for swimming and surfing, and coves like Sandy Gully perfect for exploring rock pools. Aireys Inlet is also a hub for outdoor activities with cycling paths, walking trails, and scenic picnic areas. For nature lovers, the walking trails include the Surf Coast Walk and the Cliff Top Walk, providing stunning coastal views, encounters with native wildlife, and seasonal whale sightings. Birdwatchers can enjoy the peaceful Allen Noble Sanctuary, a wetland home to diverse bird life. But I called into Aireys Inlet with one particular item on my itinerary, which was Split Point Lighthouse.
I've made the connection between your nostalgic introduction and Split Point Lighthouse.
Yes, I thought it wouldn't take long for you to cotton on. Originally named Eagle Nest Point, Split Point Lighthouse was built in 1891 and served for decades under the care of 3 lighthouse keepers who managed the light and communicated with ships. Retaining its original architecture, including a striking staircase and timber fittings, the lighthouse continues to operate with its historic British-made Chance Brothers Fresnel lens. Now, the Fresnel lens, I have learned, is a really big deal because we visited a few lighthouses.
Yeah, okay.
It's a really big deal. They had to bring it out on ships in parts, and they're very, very precious. And if a lighthouse still has one, it's like a big deal in the lighthouse people, and I'm using air quotes because there is a group, how I'm like a crazy bird person or
You're in all the groups.
Well,
You're in the Lighthouse group now too, aren't you?
I'm not, but I talk about that more later. I did try, I really tried, but I struggle with maritime history.
Okay.
It's a thing, but anyway. I'm not going to give you heaps of history about this lighthouse because there's other high points, but there will be some of it that comes in when we cover Cape Otway, which was amazing.
Okay.
So the lighthouse continues to operate with the Fresnel lens. The lighthouse was automated in 1919 with acetylene gas and upgraded to electric power in 1972. Standing 34 metres tall and 66 metres above sea level, Split Point Lighthouse still guides vessels between Cape Otway and Point Lonsdale. Accessible from the Great Ocean Road, it offers daily tours where visitors can climb to the absolute top for a breathtaking 360-degree coastal view. Tour options include self-guided and pre-booked staff-led experiences that delve into the rich history of the lighthouse, tales of shipwrecks and stories of the keepers' lives. If you do the Great Ocean Road at any point, call in here. If you don't love lighthouses and you don't love history and you don't love anything, it's worth climbing, I think, the 136 stairs to get to the top. Just for the view alone, it is amazing.
Did you get good weather?
It was perfectly sunny. It was not windy. We had been at Cape Otway the day before and it was blowing a gale, which I wasn't mad about because it gave you a really good insight into what life on these places would look like. Cape Otway is a little bit further west, and it kind of sits just out of line with where Tassie is, so where the Southern Ocean and Bass Strait meet. And I think they call it the Eye of the Needle. There's so many shipwrecks along that area, and we will do a shipwreck story very soon, which I'm working on currently, but I have a lot of books to read. I bought more books on this trip than I ever have in my entire life.
So shipwreck stories are different to maritime history?
Yeah, because it's not about the boats. I don't care about the boats. I care about the people
Okay.
and their experiences
Okay.
on the ship. I want to care about the boats. I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
You just need somebody like Dr. Alex Maisie.
I do.
To share the passion. I remember learning from somebody very passionate about microbats. I didn't think that I liked bats, but after I listened to a passionate person talk to me for an hour about microbats, I like them.
Can you introduce me to this person?
I'll see if I can find him.
Because we had microbats in our house. When we were renovating Jack's bedroom, Scott pulled the stuff off the wall and there was this little furry clump in the wall and I thought it was black mold. And I was like, oh my God, we're in trouble. Like, this is so bad. And he poked it and it was like a colony of microbats. They mustn't have been there very long because there was no smell and there was like not much poo or anything down the wall. They all flew out. I was heavily pregnant with Charlie. So I like just slammed the door shut while Scott was stuck in there with the microbats. And I'm like, don't let them bite you. They could have rabies.
How many?
So, there was so many.
Like hundreds?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say hundreds, maybe like, I don't know, 30, 40.
Ugh.
And they were just like all flying around the room. He ended up kicking the window out and they flew out, but I think that means they die. I don't think they're supposed to be outside in the sunlight, someone told me.
Should we get back on track?
Probably.
Move on.
So while all of this stuff was fascinating, it was not why I was there. The reason this place was high on my list is it is where the series Round the Twist was shot.
Yay.
And I loved this series. Did you watch it?
100%.
Loved it.
So good. So good.
Were
and
you-
still now, I make my kids watch it now and they're like, what is this pixelated thing you're making me watch?
And these ghosts that don't even look like ghosts. It was scary when we were kids.
So scary. And it aligned with, you probably got this to talk about, but it aligned with Paul Jennings' stories. So
Yes.
we could read them as well.
Yes, I have got a little bit about this. So for people who aren't Round the Twist kids like us, it was set in the fictional Port Naranda on Victoria's rugged coast. Round the Twist follows the Twist family, 14-year-old twins Pete and Linda and their younger brother Bronson, that's hard to say, younger brother Bronson, and their widowed father Tony, who was an artist. Each episode features the kids encountering a surreal supernatural adventure. The show is known and widely loved for its humorous contemporary fantasy style. 4 series were produced over 11 years, starting with a 13-episode run in 1988 based on some of Paul Jennings' best-selling children's books, like Unreal, Quirky Tales, Cabbage Patch Fib and Uncanny. Jennings also wrote the scripts for the first 2 series. Paul Jennings originally wrote these books to help his own children learn to read.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought that was really lovely. But I think he can probably also be held accountable for all of us 35 to 40-something year-old weirdos who have gone on to have a connection and appreciation for the bizarre and unusual. I'll go as far as to say it's possibly contributed to my own sense of justice and love for the supernatural because the ghosts were always so good and the bullies always got what was coming to them.
So true.
It was the best part.
Yeah.
The ghosts always had such good intentions. They never wanted to scare anyone.
Have you ever felt like this? Have strange things happen? Are you going round a twist?
The theme song is iconic and was actually sung by Tamsin West, who played Linda Twist in the first series. Production for Round the Twist began in April 1989 with filming at Melbourne Film Studios and various Victorian locations, including Split Point Lighthouse. Additional scenes were shot in Williamstown, Port Lonsdale and Queenscliff. Paul Jennings even made a cameo appearance. I think he made a couple, but the most notable being as the ghost of Ben Byron. Did you know?
No.
He is in it.
I'm Googling it.
No, I only knew that he made it because obviously I didn't know who he was when I was, I'm going to give away my age,
I think you already have.
when I was 8.
You were being very optimistic when you started with 35
to 40
I was like,
something.
"Oh, where are you going here?" Oh, yes, I remember him.
Do you?
Yes, this guy.
Yes, he was the scariest ghost. That is not what I expected Paul Jennings to look like. In my head, I thought Paul Jennings was like a curly-haired version of Ben Folds. Not what I expected. I think I started with those books, and then as I got a bit older, I got into the Goosebumps series and R.L. Stine, and
Yeah.
Paul Jennings started that whole level of weirdness.
He's to blame.
He is. He is. I'm not mad at him. I do have to say, though, I was a little bit disappointed when I turned up and there were no bedrooms or kitchen inside the lighthouse. It's just a lighthouse
Yeah.
with stairs that go up. A lot of them, I was puffing a lot by the time I got to the top. And there's little landings. I think she said there's 35 stairs at a time. And then there's little landings, and on each of the little landings, there's historic photographs and stuff of the lighthouse through history and different things from the local area. At the bottom of a lighthouse, there's that little part that comes out where the door goes in.
Yeah.
I think it had two. In my head, it had two. When I got there was only one. I think I knew deep down it was just going to be a lighthouse, and the other stuff probably was filmed in like the Lightkeeper's cottage or something, but it was all done in a studio set in Melbourne. So I wanted to go in and I wanted to see the kitchen where they all sat around and the bedrooms where Pete played his guitar and was an obnoxious jerk, and Linda did karate, and I think I knew, but it was still disappointing when I got there and it wasn't there. But that was okay because there was also no rickety dunny sitting on top of the cliff top. Remember where that – I think it's the very first episode where the ghost on the dunny.
Yep.
There was no garden of cabbages that babies grew out of. No.
So this is when nostalgia does a turn on you. Maybe a decade ago, I found some DVDs of Care Bears and I was so excited about them, and I brought them home and I watched them and I realised that was Better Left in Memory.
Was that?
Yeah. I was a bit disappointed at what I'd made it to be in my head and then what it was actually like as an adult.
Because it was pretty magical. When I think of the Care Bears, I even get a smell. And I don't think there's any particular smell tied to the Care Bears. But
Did you have a toy?
I think I had two. Maybe they had a smell.
Maybe
that's where
Isn't that incredible? When you mentioned it in the introduction, how you can smell something and you go back to a memory that you thought was gone.
I have a friend who I went to high school with, Jackie, who bought me, I think it's called Neutrogena. Is that a brand of like skincare?
Yeah.
I was
Maybe
in
hair product.
hair product. Well, it was shampoo.
Right.
But there was like cream and different stuff. It was like a little zip bag and it had shampoo and conditioner, like a little travel pack of products. And even still now, every now and then I will get this smell and it takes me back to her giving me that thing at my birthday party because it is the smell of those products.
Mine's the chickenpox bath.
Like the pine tassel.
That's the one. It wasn't a good period in my life when we had chickenpox.
No.
And every time I smell that, it's just, I remember that.
I was kind of also hoping that I'd turn up and there'd be like a little shack covered in massive amounts of seagull poo.
Oh,
I'm glad there's no smell attached to
I
that.
cannot. Guess what me and my kids are doing tonight? I'm so excited about all of these. Again, I thought I'd forgotten these memories, and every time you mention something like the outdoor dunny or the seagull
comes
poo,
back.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. The thing that I thought of as soon as you started talking about Round the Twist was without a shirt. You know the episode where Pete, every time he says a sentence, he follows it without a shirt.
Oh, no, without my pants. Is it without my pants or is it without a shirt?
I feel like the TV show and the book, this is why we've got them
Changed.
confused.
Right, okay,
Because in my head it's without a shirt.
okay. It could be right. we know we cannot trust my memory.
I'm going to watch it, and if what I just said was bullshit, I'm going to cut this out. Oh, no, I shouldn't swear because this is going to be one my kids can listen to.
I was writing this and there was a couple of times where I said the S word and I didn't because I was like, this is one that Claire will be able to listen to and she won't have to put money in the swear jar for Auntie Shannon.
I'm nearly finished the Taylor Swift Eras with my daughter, and she has heard her fair share of swear words. Don't worry.
Okay. Well, it's just probably better if it's coming from Taylor and not from me.
Back to the story.
Back to the story. There's a lot of side quests today, people. We haven't seen each other for a while. We're a bit unhinged. I just left feeling like film studios had a lot to answer for. And considering the fact that I myself have written and directed a short film, I probably should know that. It was great. I loved every minute of it, but I just had left with that level of disappointment. Like, I think I expected like Linda and Bronson to be there and, sitting around the table.
I wonder what they look like now. Probably exactly the same.
So after going and all of the excitement of it, I made a little Instagram post where I put photos of the staircase and just with the "have you ever felt like this" in the background, like on my Instagram. And then I got a very sternly worded message from Jack, who, for those of you who don't know my son, is an adult and is about to have his own child. And he felt a very strong desire to call me out on my betrayal and treachery for daring to go there without him. That wasn't enough, like my laughing emoji reaction that I sent back to him. So then he called and I was like, "Hey, how are you?" There was no like, "Hey, Mum," or anything like that. It was just, "How could you?"
Really? So they loved it that much too?
Elsie and Jack loved Round the Twist. Charlie didn't love it as much.
I would think this generation who play Minecraft would really appreciate the quality of what that show says. Our kids should love it.
Nothing is as bad as Minecraft. But every second of that abusive phone call was special. Like it felt like it just kind of took me back to when he was a little boy and we watched it and they got scared about the ghost on the toilet. Like not super scared and like not as scared as I got, but they did get a little bit scared about it. And I think there's just something so exceptionally special about sharing those things that mean so much to you and then your kids getting the same level of joy out of them.
Or vice versa, when they don't. When you store your toys for 30 years and you bring them out and she's like, "What is this Polly Pocket crap?"
I am giving this to you and it is worth thousands of dollars.
It really is.
Polly Pocket is worth so much
she didn't
money.
like it. They just lost all the tiny little bits so that it's not worth as much anymore because it doesn't have any characters.
I had a little house that had little people like Polly Pockets. It was a purple house and the roof opened up and the house opened out and they smelt like violets. The house smelled like violets and the little tiny girls smelled like violets. Every time I smell violets, I think of that little play set and I think there was a little cat and tiny little miniature furniture. It was like probably a poor person's version of Polly Pocket. But it was still great. Loved it.
Move on.
So I was thinking about this morning when I was writing those magical moments, like where you have that connection with your kids. And I'm going to mention this just because you watched Monty Python the other day.
I didn't make it to the end, mate.
I didn't think that you would.
I did not like it.
But there was once where Elsie had a bike accident at my friend's house and we rushed her off to the hospital. And I'd put her in a wheelchair because, like, she had a serious
gash. We talked about this.
Oh, yeah, when I had to wheel her around the rocks, yeah. So when we got to emergency, she had a blanket over her legs because she'd fully gone into shock but she was fine again by the time we got to emergency, but she'd been shivering. So we had a blanket over her and I just sat her down and I went to the thing and I said, "Oh, look, she's got this big cut in her leg." And they're like, yep, as soon as we can get you in. So we sat there for ages and people like were coming after us and going in before us. And I was like, "Oh, this isn't good." Because like when you peeled the blanket back, like there was chunks of fat falling out of a leg. It was like it was bad cut.
It's not funny, Elsie. I'm laughing at your mum's face.
I'm ripping your mum off. Bad cut when she cut her finger with the thing. Oh, God, so intrinsically tried with all these in-jokes that the people listening are just going to go, oh, these girls are nuts. Anyway, so I go up to the lady and I said, do you think that you want to have a little look at this? Because we had been waiting for a while and I was being very patient. And Elsie was fine because she was all just like chatty and talking. I think the shock had turned into maybe like a manic episode because she was, you know. And they come and had a look at it. They pulled back the blanket and were like, they were shocked. I think they were thinking it was like a bit of a graze. They weren't thinking it was as bad as what it was. And like, oh my God, we're sorry. And she said in a perfect English accent, "'Tis but a scratch." And they kind of looked at her. She said, "Just a mere flesh wound," which is from the Black Knight says it in the Monty Python
I didn't make it that far.
Did you watch the one with the horses and the clapping coconuts?
Yes.
Yes.
I did watch that bit.
The first time I watched that, I could not stop laughing. It was so funny.
I was just giving the kids weird look. We were just looking at each other with these like, what the faces? What is she making me watch?
So there's this part where the Black Knight gets his arm cut off by King Arthur, King of the Britons. And he chops his arm off and he's like, "'Tis but a scratch." And then,
I did watch this bit. I did.
And then he chops his other arm off. And he's like, "You've got no arms, I've won." And he's like, "It's just a flesh wound." And then his legs. Chops his legs off. And then when he's just a torso on the ground and King Arthur moves on and he's like, "Run away, you coward." We'll call it a draw. I can't believe you did.
Move on.
Anyway, so Elsie had half of the emergency department in stitches with her Monty Python reference, and it goes in that same thing as that conversation with Jack. I loved that they loved that as much as I did. I didn't watch it when I was a kid. Miss Ovens introduced us to Monty Python.
I have
in
not
high
made
school.
the connection. Oh, the Monty Python. Got it. Got the connection. I was like, how are we comparing around the twist to Elsie hurting her leg?
Monty Python.
We're comparing
reference.
it to Monty Python. Got it.
It's the same thing. I had this thing that I really loved myself, and then they watched it and they are clearly as warped as I am and thought it was hilarious. So, yes, I'm blaming poor Jennings for cultivating my weirdness and adding to the fact that I find these little moments, like rage-inducing phone calls and manic emergency room moments, among the most joyous of my parenting memories. The lighthouse was a super bucket list tick for me. There was a lady there and she was kind of talking through some stuff. I kind of got stuck out on the balcony with some girls who are obviously very, very popular on Instagram and had to make sure they got their shots exactly right. So I didn't really get a lot of the history there, and I've done some reading about it. But like I said, the whole maritime thing doesn't really super grab me. But there was two things that made my ears prick about this lighthouse. And one was about a lighthouse keeper, Richard Joy Baker, who did not exactly sleep on the job, but he did not see why he should be deprived of his social light at night, because obviously lighthouse keepers work most at night when they're making sure that the light is going and they have to be there because otherwise ships crash and people die. So he scratched a small hole in the black paint, which is at the back, to stop the light as it rotates around from shining in on all the townspeople and annoying the hell out of them while they're asleep in their beds. So he scratched a small hole in the black paint that lined up exactly with the Aireys Inlet Hotel. So as the globe went around in the lighthouse, he would just get a tiny little flick from the hotel and he could see that the lantern was still working and all the ships were safe and he could still be at the pub drinking beer. And I was like, I like that man. I did really like that story. The other one, and I haven't been able to substantiate any of this evidence, was that apparently in the early 1900s, a family who occupied the lighthouse, so I'm assuming the dad was the lighthouse keeper, one night their teenage daughter come home and explained to her parents that she was pregnant. The story goes that the father took her out fishing that night and she never returned home. And over the last 100 years, there have been several teenage boys claiming to see her ghost when they're on the rocks beneath the lighthouse. They say that a girl dressed in old clothes appears from the water and begins persuading them to join her on the edge of the water. And it's widely claimed in the area that they believe that she is looking for a father for her child. And once she finds him, they can both rest in peace.
Oh, love that story.
I did watch a YouTube video of a boy who went down there who was about the right age, but he didn't find her. He did a whole YouTube video of trying to find her and see if he could. Yeah, but he didn't.
Oh.
So it's a sad story if it is actually true, but I haven't been able to. There's not a lot of history online about the keepers of the lighthouses and stuff. So I thought I could at least line it up with which family it was if there was a daughter that died, but I haven't been able to do that. So we'll just notch it down as a really cool story.
Yeah, shout out to any locals from Aireys Inlet that might be listening that could help us out with this story.
That would be great. So here's where my intention to give Megan a really straightforward, nostalgic story was going to end. But if you know me, you know she's got Buckley's chance of that.
This is where you fell down the rabbit hole.
It's where I fell down the rabbit hole. Have you heard that saying before, Megan? Buckley's chance?
Yeah? You've got Buckley's.
You've got Buckley's. You've got between Buckley's and none.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to tell you where that comes from.
No way.
Yes, I am. Born around 1780 in Cheshire, England, Buckley's early life was unremarkable. He was raised by his grandfather, trained as a bricklayer, and eventually joined the military. But his life took a dramatic turn when he was wrongly convicted of the theft of some cloth that he offered to carry back for a local woman, and then he was sentenced to transportation. In 1803, Buckley found himself aboard the HMS Calcutta, destined for a small struggling colony at Port Phillip. The settlement was barely functional, struggling for fresh water and decent soil, and soon plans were made to abandon it and head towards Van Diemen's Land, which is obviously now Tasmania. But Buckley and a few other convicts seized the chance to escape, disappearing into the wilderness with nothing but a few rations and a dream of freedom. It wasn't long before Buckley was soon alone and starving in the harsh Australian bush. Over the following days, Buckley became increasingly ill due to dehydration, starvation, and painful sores from poor nutrition. Buckley was near death when he arrived at Aireys Inlet, and he found embers from an earlier fire, some fresh water, seafood, and a cave for shelter. He stayed a while to build back his strength and established a little hut for himself, which you can visit. There is a little area called Buckley's Hut. And he made that out of branches and seaweed. He foraged for plants and berries and seafood to sustain himself for that time. But when he stumbled across a spear planted in an Aboriginal burial site, taking it as a walking stick to help him with his injured leg, Buckley inadvertently made a gesture of significance to the local Wadawurrung people, who believed him to be the reincarnated spirit of a deceased chief. They called him Murrungurk and welcomed him into their world. Over the next 32 years, Buckley became one of the Wadawurrung, adopting their language, their customs, and their skills. He learned to hunt, forage, and survive as they did. In time, as he proved himself, he even took a wife and had a daughter. And though he remained a peculiar figure, being a white man with an exceptionally tall frame, his unique story earned him respect. The man who escaped his life as a convict now lived as a free man, deeply woven into the life and lore of the Wadawurrung people. Then in 1835, Buckley's life took another twist when he encountered a ship that had arrived at Indented Head, and Buckley learnt that some of the Aboriginal people intended to murder the English passengers and rob the ship. On the 6th of July 1835, William Buckley and a group of Indigenous people appeared at the campsite of the settlers led by John Wedge. He wore kangaroo skins, carried Aboriginal weapons, and wore a tattoo with the initials WB. William Todd recalls this in his journal entry for the 6th of July 1835. About 2 o'clock, a white man came walking up to the native huts, a most surprising sight. Clad the same as the natives, he seemed highly pleased to see us. We brought him a piece of bread which he ate heartily and told us immediately what it was. He also informs us that he has been above 20 years in the country, during which time he has been with the natives. He then told us that his name was William Buckley. Being so long with the natives, he had nearly forgotten the English language, but the native language he can speak fluently. The tattoo initials prove that he was indeed the convict William Buckley, who had been given up for dead 3 decades ago. Legally, though, he was still a convict and could have been imprisoned again. However, the Indigenous people were still intent on raiding the Englishmen. Buckley convinced them to not attack them, and he promised to reward them if they remained peaceful. Wedge promptly obtained a pardon for Buckley through Governor Arthur, aware that his negotiations likely saved all of their lives. These settlers, unfamiliar with the land and its people, saw Buckley as a bridge between cultures. Though he had nearly entirely forgotten his English and it took him some time to relearn, he became a mediator between two worlds, helping avoid further conflicts. William Buckley was then employed by John Bateman as an interpreter and builder in Melbourne. He later served as a government interpreter working to mediate between Indigenous people and settlers. On February 4, 1836, Buckley joined a party for a trip towards Geelong. There, he was reunited with a group of Wadawurrung people who greeted him warmly with deep affection and joy. However, they were saddened to learn that Buckley would not be staying with them again. Despite his role, Buckley eventually faced suspicion from both the Indigenous and colonial communities, with no one completely sure if he was working in favour of the benefit of the whites or the Indigenous' best interests. Frustrated with this, he moved to Van Diemen's Land in 1838, where he worked at the immigrants' home and later at the female factory. In 1840, he married Julia Higgins, a widow that he had met through his work. They lived in Battery Point, Hobart, where Buckley eventually retired in 1850. He died on January 30th, 1856, from injuries sustained in a carriage accident and was buried at St George Anglican Church.
What happened to his first partner and child?
So I am assuming that once he went off to work, she stayed with her community.
But why did you do that?
Yeah. There's some problematic stuff in there.
So the saying is talking about the chance of him surviving on that trip.
Is Buckley's.
Yeah.
Apparently there was a department store in Melbourne back in the early days called Buckley's and Nunn, Nunn, and they believe that He's Got Between Buckley's and Nunn is a play on the original He's Got Buckley's Chance because of the store named Buckley's and Nunn. So it was his extraordinary life that started that saying that we all say, and I certainly didn't have any idea where it came from. I've said it heaps of times.
And it came from Aireys Inlet.
Aireys Inlet.
That's fascinating.
I know, amazing. But
Oh, she's still going.
this story then threw me down a giant rabbit hole. And you can thank Telstra and its shithouse internet service that this story is going to end here, because what we know of Buckley's life is based on a book written by John Morgan, The Life and Adventures of William Buckley. It was written when the illiterate Buckley was 72 years old. I think the book was clearly intended to make money for Morgan, who was insolvent at the time, and Buckley was fairly old. That might have one part to do with it, but there's this whole load of information about what life was like living within an Indigenous community. It's not highly regarded by historians, even though it is a person's first-hand account, even though it's told to an author, because they think that maybe Morgan might have
Embellished
some of it to make it more readable and enticing to make money out of it. So it could be that, or it also could be that in the book, Buckley references the Bunyip and a tribe of copper-coloured pot-bellied cannibals, which he refers to as Pallidergberans. I don't know exactly how you pronounce that. Who supposedly lived in the Otway forests. And I think maybe that's probably got some reason why historians don't look at it either. So I then started researching what a Pallidergberan was because I found an excerpt of the book in like a newspaper. So it was on Trove and I was able to read a little part of this book. I am all in. I want to know everything about William Buckley and his life and his relationships with the Indigenous community there. And I want to know about his bunyip experiences and I want to know about this group of people that lived in the Otway National Park, but the fact that they're copper-coloured and pot-bellied and cannibals kind of sounds a little bit like Yowie. So.
Right. So connecting the dots to when you said the reason why this episode's going to wrap up sooner than you planned was that you ran out of internet. Your internet wasn't working, so you couldn't do as much research
as I wanted to for this episode. So this would have been like probably an hour and a half.
You found the bottom of the rabbit hole, but not intentionally.
Only because of Telstra. This is really where this is going to end, but I can't guarantee that you, me and William Buckley aren't going to spend some more time together in the future. So
Excellent.
We'll see how that goes and if I can get my hands on a copy of that book. This was just a nice light one because we haven't seen each other for a few weeks and I thought I won't come in and traumatise you on day one because I know that you have been editing Anne and if you have listened to it as many times as I have when I've been trying to remove 7 minutes from the last episode.
She didn't. It went over. That's okay. And then you refer to show notes. So I go to the show notes and I watch all of the things that you tell me to. And she's just been part of my world for a long time. So I really appreciate that. I did need a lighter one.
Yeah. And I just thought that you'd really enjoy maybe finding a little bit of the Round the Twist theme song to put in here somewhere. So,
I will do that. I will.
Have you ever felt like this? Have strange things happen? Are you going round a twist?
So just before we head off, I want to say a huge thanks to all of our listeners because heading off on this trip, knowing that I had a reason to throw myself fully into all of these little snippets of stories that I find along the way so I could bring them all home and gift them to you guys was really meaningful. I did feel a little bit like a journalist at times, you know, asking questions about things and just having real reasons to do that. I would seek people out and say, if there was one thing that you think that people need to know about this area, like what story would it be? And they're not things that you find on the tourist calendar or the websites. I've got popped onto some amazing little stories that I'm really, really excited to share. The other thing is when they say to me, why are you so invested? I can say, I host a podcast instead of just saying I'm a real weirdo. So that was really nice. So thanks, guys, because I wouldn't be able to do that stuff without you guys listening and giving me a reason to do that. The journey itself that we've just undertaken was incredible, and I didn't share the travelling photos to our socials because I'm not entirely sure who wants the travel stuff and who wants the crazy morbid stories that go along with them. So if you would like to see some of the travel pictures, you can find them on my personal Insta account, which is Nature and Its Noise. So feel free to have a little look at that if you would like to. But if you would like me to include them on our socials, leave a comment wherever you listen and let us know. While you're there, leave us a rating because that really helps like the Apple and the Spotify gods to recommend us to other people, and that's how we grow our audience. There's been a lot of people say, how can we help? Can we share the episode? And all of that stuff's really great. But the best way that you can help us is by rating us on whatever platform that you are listening to.
Feedback is good, not just from like our mums who tell us that's all. Yeah, It's all wonderful.
Yeah.
Feedback's great. We value that very much.
It is. And I have been getting some really lovely feedback, which is really, really wonderful. So if you want to see my really cute wombat pictures and I really want another excuse to share them, let us know and I will start popping some of that like in the Insta and Facebook feeds.
And the Southern Lights?
Oh, the aurora. I think we're going to have to get some sort of scientist to come on and do an episode to explain that phenomenon. I know a little bit about it, but it's not going to be as great coming from me as what it is from someone who actually knows what they're talking about. But I did, massive bucket list tick, get to photograph an aurora when we were in Mount Gambier, and it was incredible. We could see, they call them Steves. There is a name for Steve. That is a Steve. But I don't know it without Googling it. But we'll do an episode and explain to you what they are. But we could see those with our naked eye, which was so amazing.
Your photos are incredible.
Yeah, so there's a whole pile of stories to come. And I haven't forgotten part 2 of Monte Cristo, which Claire is very keen to listen to, where I'll be able to share about Mum having to smell ghost wee. And we've also got our conversation with River, who is a Wiradjuri man and answered all of my questions about Indigenous perspectives on Yowies and bunyips and shared some of his own experiences with them. So that will be coming up very soon as because if it doesn't, Phil is going to throw a spanner at me. So one of our listeners, Phil, actually called my work, my other job, and said I need more paid leave because he's sick of waiting on the episodes that I tell him that are coming. So
I hope Phil is your friend. How does he know where you work?
he's actually a customer of our work.
Okay.
Yeah, so he'll get a laugh out of that. He's really frustrated that it hasn't been out because
We hear you, Phil.
I told him about it and then I went away for 3 weeks and then I come back and I'm like, oh, we've got all these other ones first. And he's like, hurry up. So
Anne Hamilton Byrne was hanging over our shoulders for a long time.
She
I feel
was.
really good to be done with that bitch.
So I'm sorry, Megan, that you're nice, super clear, just a lighthouse story, bit of a kid's adventure turned into this with all of these side quests and stuff, but everybody got to listen to us have our catch up. That's as good as it's going to get. And it's probably the first one for a while that you've had without a trigger warning. And you've got Buckley's that you'll probably get another one anytime soon. So.
Thanks. I'm going to go eat my chocolate. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of If These Trees Could Talk. If you would like to access more about the places or information included in today's topic, please visit our website ifthesetreescouldtalk.com.au. If you would like to follow us on our adventures, check us out on Facebook or Insta. Our creative writer is Shannon Walters and our podcast is produced at Bellevue Studio in the Hunter Valley with audio production by Megan Anderson. We love to hear your feedback, so please rate and review, and if you would like to hear more, please subscribe. We look forward to you joining us for our next adventure.